I want to tell you about the new Paperwhite, the third generation Paperwhite, which I've got a copy here to compare with the existing Paperwhite 2, and then I'm also going to talk about how the Voyage, the top of the line Kindle, compares with this new upgrade on the Paperwhite. I have the new Kindle Paperwhite, we're calling the Paperwhite 3 on the right here, and the current model, the Paperwhite 2, on the left. You'll see that there is a difference in color. It's very subtle. To my eye, the existing Paperwhite has got more of a bluish hue to it, but it really changes in different light, and I think they're very comparable. They both look like the e-ink screen that we've been used to in various models of the Kindle. But you will notice, if you have these two side by side, I think you'll notice a slightly different color to the screen. The big difference here is the resolution, and we'll start by zooming in on the existing Paperwhite. It's certainly readable. You're not going to be reading along on your Paperwhite 2 and say, oh, this is too fuzzy. It's at 212 ppi. It's very clear. But if you put them side by side, you will notice that the lines are just a little clearer, and it's all a little more precise because of that higher screen resolution, and that certainly translates to easier reading, better readability, and it would probably make a big difference too if you're looking at tables in your Kindle book and things like that as opposed to regular type. The other difference that if you're buying a Paperwhite, a used one, you want to know which model you're getting, and the current model, the second generation, it has the Kindle logo in kind of a white, very visible image there on the front. The new one, it says Kindle, but you have to get it in just the right light to be able to see it. It's sort of a reflective Kindle there. These second and third generation both say Amazon on the back, but the new one here, it doesn't actually have a kind of ink on it. It's just an indent. If you see a Paperwhite like this on the back that says Kindle, that means you've got a first generation Kindle, so that would be worth much less than either the second generation or the third. I think there may be a very slight difference in weight. I read some specs on Engadget that showed that the Paperwhite 2 was 7.3 ounces. This is listed at 7.3. That's the Wi-Fi only. I can't tell the difference of a tenth of an ounce, but that does seem to be a slight difference in the hardware. Price, exactly the same, $119 for Wi-Fi only, and $70 more if you want the 3G, and $20 more if you want to not have the special offers on both of those. I want to turn now to a comparison of the Paperwhite, new and improved Paperwhite, with the Voyage, which is still the top of the line Kindle. It costs $70 more in each of its configurations, and it's got some differences which I think still make it a credible top of the line device. Whether or not it's worth paying $70 more is up to you and your budget and how much you love having the latest and the greatest. Differences, the main difference is the weight. The Voyage is a little slimmer, and it weighs 6.3 ounces versus 7.2 ounces for the new Paperwhite. You can really feel that difference. And last night when I was reading with the new Paperwhite instead of my Voyage, which I've been using for the last 7 months, I could really tell the difference in that weight. And to me, in an e-reader, lighter is always better. It's slightly smaller, and the main dimension where it's smaller, the Voyage is 0.3 inches shorter. So if you see them overlapping here, you can see that the Voyage is just a little bit shorter on that dimension, slightly less wide, 4.5 versus 4.6, and slightly thinner too. These all add up to it. It just feels like a sleeker device. There's no getting around that. The other big difference in the Voyage are these page press buttons, and on the Paperwhite, everything you do, you tap on the screen. You tap over here to go to the next page. here to do the previous page, here to show the menu, the navigation menu, etc. On the Voyage, you can use those kinds of navigation on the screen itself to advance the page or go back. But you also have these page press controls along the side, and they take some getting used to. One of the things that I discovered when a lot of my e-ink Kindle reading is at night, and when you're reading in the dark with your partner asleep, you can't feel the difference between this next page press control or the one up here, which is the previous page. So you have to just sort of remember where it is, and the next page is, that's a bigger bar to hit, so it's easy enough to figure that out. But I think in a future iteration of the Voyage, they might have given some kind of a clue when you feel it, which is where that next page button is. When you press that button, you get sort of a little vibration. They call it a haptic touch that tells you that you've succeeded in advancing the page. There's absolutely no sound. It's not going to wake anybody up. And I've learned how to hold it with one hand so that my thumb is just resting here. And I pretty much like not having to touch the screen to advance it. And it makes, you have to, depending how big your hand is, that you might not be able to actually do this with one hand. I think given the summer reading and the fact that these e-ink Kindles are great for reading at the beach, if you've got suntan lotion on your thumb and you're touching your screen to go advance the pages, that might get a little greasy compared to the ability to press that next page on the side of the Voyage. The other thing which I prefer on the Voyage is that on the Paperwhites, and the new one's the same, you see that you've got the screen is indented. So this is the outer area here is a little higher than the screen itself. I think dust can get in there, and it feels like you're looking down into a box. Obviously, a box with very small sides, but by comparison, the Voyage it has a seamless surface here. The whole surface is one layer. It's a glass that's etched in a way to mirror the way the e-ink screen is on the Paperwhite. But it just makes it seem more smooth and just less place for dust to get into. The other thing it results in is that this feels like glass. It's very smooth, so if you are touching it, it's kind of a pleasing touch on glass. And on the Paperwhite, you get sort of it's not sandpaper, but it's a little rougher. I don't know if it's plastic or exactly what the difference is, but it doesn't feel as smooth. It maybe doesn't feel quite as clean as the glass does on the Voyage. So all in all, I think I thought, gee, maybe with this new Paperwhite, I would just put my Voyage on eBay or something and switch to the Paperwhite because it's now got the 300 ppi resolution. But that's not the case. I'm going to stick with the Voyage. I made the plunge and paid the $70 more to get the 3G model, and this will still stay my reader of choice. Now, one thing I hope happens fairly soon is that they update the software on the Voyage, because at this point you can't get that Bookerly font on the Voyage, which is now the one here. This is showing the Bookerly font. And let's go back to that introduction. Okay, so the Bookerly font, I think, is a nice improvement. I think it's a pretty pleasing font, and it's not available yet on the Voyage. Some of the improvements that are being talked about with the new Paperwhite include typesetting and layout, and these get to be fairly technical improvements. But on this comparison here, I've got the same size font in each, and on the Paperwhite 3, which is now more advanced than the Voyage because of the software, you're seeing a line here, this second line, medical school, comma, but mortality wasn't. And over here on the Voyage, which is still got the older software, you've got more spacing. That word hasn't been put up onto that line. And the net result of this is it's just a tighter packing of the words on the line and a little better readability. If we go to the next page, I think you can see the same thing. What it's also resulting in is your fewer page turns to read a book because of the tightness of the font and the typesetting. And I think that kind of, there may be even more improvements coming when they update the software to the new Paperwhite, and I assume that Voyage will be keeping pace with that as well. In conclusion, I think if you if you've got an older Kindle, a Kindle 2, a keyboard, the Kindle Touch, this would be a great time to update to a Paperwhite, since they've increased the screen resolution so dramatically, kept the price the same. So that just sort of makes the Paperwhite an even more attractive alternative than it has up until this recent change. In terms of the Voyage and whether or not it's worth $70 more to get the top of the line Kindle, it depends on how much $70 bites into your budget, how passionate you are about having the latest and greatest. I still think it is the greatest Kindle, the Voyage, because of its how thin it is and how the squeeze, the page press buttons, I think add a nice option for page turns, which the Paperwhite doesn't have. And I've grown to really enjoy my Voyage over using it for 7 months now, and I'm not going to switch to the heavier Paperwhite just because the Paperwhite's been improved so much. But Darlene, my wife's going to be very excited to upgrade to the Paperwhite 3 from the Paperwhite 2 with that better resolution, and so probably her Paperwhite 2 will now go to eBay, or maybe I'll have a drawing of some kind for listeners at the Kindle Chronicles. I hope that's helpful, and if you're not familiar with my weekly podcast, the Kindle Chronicles, every Friday we talk about how to get the most out of your Kindle, and we talk to authors and people involved in the ebook revolution. We're coming up on the 7th anniversary of the show. Every Friday for 45 minutes we just talk about all things Kindle and ebooks. And you'll find the show notes page at thekindlechronicles.com, and it's also at all the iTunes and all the podcast directories. This is Len Edgerly in Cambridge, Massachusetts for the Kindle Chronicles.